Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video, and we're doing another history reaction, and this one is the history of Britain in 20 minutes. Yeah, I've been doing like some more history-based reactions recently. I stopped doing them for a long time, and I've just found myself going back to them. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just, well, I guess the interest is back, but I don't know why I stopped in the first place. But yeah, I guess in terms of historical type reactions, let me know what you want to see, because I'm now sort of, I guess, bringing them back, and yeah, I'm just watching these kinds of videos. So yeah, suggest it in the comments and do that kind of stuff. Or if you want some more reactions to this channel, I don't know about this, let me know in the comments. But yeah, we're going to jump into this. This is one that I'm going to learn about. I mean, I should probably know all this stuff, but knowing me, I probably don't. It's going to be a lot of invading, taking control, and doing what Britain used to do. But I don't know how far back the history will go. I guess it says from the Anglo-Saxons. So I know all these terms, Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings and stuff, but I just can't remember how it all went. So I'm just going to, I guess, going to remind me and stuff. But yeah, hopefully you're going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see some more reactions of mine, or suggest me some videos to do, react to. And I mean, yeah, let's just jump into this. What way to start the video?
The United Kingdom is a nation located in the British Isles, made up of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
Now, I don't know how long that will last.
Thousands of years ago, the Isles were inhabited by long-forgotten pre-Celtic people, known as the Beaker culture, named for their distinctive pottery beakers. Little is known of them, but it has been suggested that these people laid the foundations for the mysterious Stonehenge, a series of heavy standing stones which were transported from 150 miles away and arranged to form a calendar, marking...
I've never actually seen them, but they are one of those things that you just look at and you're like, how would they have even managed to do this?
The days of the summer and winter solstice. Over time, waves of Celtic-speaking people arrived from the European continent, who soon came to form the Brittonic, Gaelic and Pictish people. These people were not a unified people, but were rather many tribes who shared a similar pagan religion, language and culture. The Romans invaded, conquering what's now England and Wales, but failed to conquer the Pictish tribes to the north. The Romans launched several campaigns into this land they called Caledonia. However, their fortifications were soon overrun and abandoned, and they retreated to Hadrian's Wall. Their conquered lands were incorporated into the Roman Empire, becoming the province of Britannia. They brought Roman customs and laws, improved infrastructure and connected many towns and cities with Roman roads. When the Romans left, there was a great migration of Germanic tribes. These were the Jutes, Angles and Saxons, with their language Old English. Their settlement pushed many Britons to areas in Wales, Brittany and a kingdom known as Dumnonia, while Scotland eventually evolved into 4 kingdoms. The smallest of these were the Scots, who were originally from Ireland, the Britons of Strathclyde, the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Bernicia and the Picts of Alba. For unknown reasons, the Jutes disappeared from history, but the Angles and Saxons eventually formed 7 kingdoms. Wessex...
Damn, Mercia? Is that how you say it? How is that seas? Out there, Mercia. That's a big area. You got Manchester, you got Liverpool, you got Birmingham, you got a lot of cities. That's what I'm gonna say. This is obviously East Anglia, which is the same. It's interesting how they sort of saw it like this, but then I guess the grayed out they didn't recognize it or whatever. But yeah, this is like, I guess this was the counties at this point. It's so different to this now, though. I didn't know it was called this. I didn't know about these names or anything. So this is something that I'm definitely learning about for the first time. This is all stuff that I did learn about, but I've just forgot about it. I feel like maybe not. I've not learned about all of it, but I've definitely learned about some of this stuff. But it was so long ago, it's just out of my mind. So it's going to be good to like relearn it and stuff.
Sussex, Kent, Essex, East Anglia, Mercia and Bernicia became Northumbria. After the collapse of Dumnonia, the remaining territory of Cornwall fought against the powerful kingdom of Wessex. Cornwall eventually fell under the control of Wessex, but it managed to keep its own culture. Wales at this point was also made up of several separate kingdoms, the largest being Gwynedd in the north, Powys in the east and Dyfed to the south. The British Isles soon saw numerous Norse raiders from Scandinavia. These were the Vikings, and they began settlement on many of the Scottish Isles, the Isle of Man, and they even founded the city of Dublin in Ireland.
Really?
The Scots and the Picts then decided to unite under Kenneth MacAlpine to form the Kingdom of Alba. The Kingdom of Alba grew strong over the years, and eventually Strathclyde was brought into the fold. Meanwhile, Danish Vikings arrived in the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms for conquest. After fighting the King of Wessex, Alfred the Great, the Danelaw was formed, a land where the laws of the Danes held influence over the Anglo-Saxons, controlling the region and its affairs. The Anglo-Saxons eventually defeated the last Viking king of York, Eric Bloodaxe, and Athelstan became the first king of the English. Although, the newly formed Kingdom of Denmark would conquer England and even found a short-lived Danish dynasty under Canute. The Norsemen had a dramatic impact on the Isles, so it's no wonder some words in the English language have Norse origin. After defeating formidable sea raiders from Ireland, the Western Isles, Scandinavia and Anglo-Saxon forces from Mercia, Griffith ap Llywelyn subdued his rivals in southwest Wales. Llywelyn became the only Welsh king ever to rule over the entire territory of Wales.
Really? In the whole history, the only Welsh king, the only Welsh ruler? What?
He was defeated by the English Earl Harold Godwinson and killed by his own men, leading to the Welsh kingdoms splitting apart once more. At the death of Edward the Confessor, there was a succession dispute between 4 claimants. Harold Godwinson was elected as king, and managed to defend England from an invasion by the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada. However, Harold had to march his armies south to defend against Duke William of Normandy, who had crossed the English Channel. According to tradition, at the Battle of Hastings, Harold was killed by an arrow to the eye, and the Norman invaders were victorious. The new King William defeated a number of rebellions, built a new design of castles called Moat and Baileys, and introduced a number of reforms, like trial by combat and the Domesday Book. The Norman dynasty invaded into South Wales and parts of Ireland, creating the Lordship of Ireland. At court, nobles spoke and conducted sessions in the Anglo-Norman language, which endured for centuries and left an incredible mark in development of modern English. After a brief civil war, Henry II would marry Eleanor of Aquitaine, establishing the Angevin Empire, beginning a long rivalry against France. Richard the Lionheart defended much of this territory and also became a central Christian commander during the Third Crusade, achieving considerable victories against his Muslim counterpart, Saladin. Under King John, heavy taxes were imposed on his barons in order to pay for his expensive foreign wars. The barons rebelled and forced John to sign the Magna Carta, a charter that established the principle that everyone was subject to the law, even the king, guaranteeing the rights of individuals, the right to justice, and the right to a fair trial. Most of North Wales remained independently ruled by several Welsh princes, until 1216, when Llewellyn the Great became the ruler of the Principality of Wales. This would be the case until Edward I, who conquered Wales in 1284, effectively becoming part of England.
What?
At the death of King Alexander III, Scotland was left with 14 rivals for succession. To prevent civil war, the Scottish magnates asked Edward I of England to elect a claimant. John Balliol was elected king, but was constantly undermined by Edward, who opposed Scottish independence. Edward decided to launch several campaigns to conquer Scotland and depose King John, to which he acquired the nickname Hammer of the Scots. Under a brave Scottish knight William Wallace, the Scots mounted resistance against the English, defeating them at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Edward marched north in person and defeated Wallace in battle, but Wallace managed to escape. He was later captured and executed, but his efforts allowed Robert the Bruce to rise up and defeat the English, securing Scottish independence. When the King of France died without an heir, Edward III was technically eligible to the crown, through his mother. The French court denied his claim and instead installed Philip of Valois.
Where? Not right now. Well, I'm doing videos right now.
Edward paid homage to Philip as he owned the lands of Gascony and was essentially a vassal to the King of France. Due to disagreements, Edward reasserted his claim to the throne and invaded France, beginning the 100 Years' War. The English achieved notable victories at the Battle of Crécy, Poitiers and Agincourt thanks to the technical superiority of the longbow, but was unable to conquer the French with the appearance of Joan of Arc, who lifted the French spirit and turned the tide of the war. Upon the death of Edward III, an entire generation was skipped in the line of succession, which prompted bitter rivalry between several claimants. Most
They all want
notably
it,
were
man.
the houses of York and Lancaster. Tensions were high until a bloody age of warfare erupted between these two factions in the Wars of the Roses. It's so in-depth and complicated this period will likely become a video of its own. The wars
Really
ended with the
was.
arrival of the Tudor dynasty.
So many different things, man. I find it crazy how just all these different like invasions and stuff led to this. Like, obviously that's how everything's created, right, in the UK. But it's just all these different invasions, all these different countries wanting to take control, like the Vikings or the Saxons or just whatever it is. All these different people, and that's what led to all of this now. I wonder like the percentage of people with a Nordic background in England, in the UK, and as a whole. Like, I wonder what the highest percentages of people from like their backgrounds and stuff, where they come from. I don't know my ancestors at all like that. I don't know. I'm probably like from Nordic background and stuff, looking at my skin and stuff. But yeah, I just wonder honestly.
Henry VIII, wanting a divorce, split with the church, creating his own Church of England. This ultimately led to a series of religious differences between future English monarchs. In between his 6 wives and naval adventures, Henry gave Wales representation in Parliament and created the Kingdom of Ireland, but realistically he only controlled an area known as the Pale. In addition, Henry's paranoia and suspicion amounted to tens of thousands of executions, including his friends and wives.
God damn.
During the 16th
I mean, we all know he was a terrible king, but jeez.
century, the largest and most powerful empire was Spain, under King Philip II. England, under Elizabeth I, were helping Dutch rebels reject Spanish rule, and many English privateers were also intercepting Spanish silver on its journey back from the New World. This angered the Spanish king, and the final straw came when Elizabeth had Mary, Queen of Scots, executed, because she did not want Scotland falling under Catholicism. The Spanish Armada, consisting of 130 ships, was deployed to invade England. At the Battle of Gravelines, an English victory forced the Spanish fleet to sail around the British Isles before storms in the north of Scotland destroyed the remaining ships. In retaliation, the English, led by Sir Francis Drake, amassed their own armada to invade Spain, but this too became a failed endeavour. Born in this period, William Shakespeare became a renowned poet, playwright and actor, who contributed significantly to English literature. When Queen Elizabeth of England died without an heir, her closest male relative was James VI of Scotland. James was elected as King of England and Scotland in a personal union.
Wow, that's wild. So at this point it was like all one country.
Although the countries remained separate political entities. As the first monarch to rule the entire island of Great Britain, several assassination attempts were made by Catholic conspirators. One such assassination attempt was the gunpowder plot by Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up Parliament. After a failed colony known as Roanoke, England established a successful colony known as Jamestown, which would eventually evolve into the 13 colonies. At first, expeditions to the New World were mainly driven by religious motives, which were predominantly to convert the natives to their faith. But colonies became more profitable, as demand for New World crops like tobacco and sugar increased. British ships also made a monopoly on the transportation of captive African slaves that crossed the Atlantic to the Americas. Millions of Africans were shipped in cramped, horrific conditions to work on brutal plantations in the Americas, and essentially became property to their masters. For 300 years this practice continued in the British Empire until it was fully abolished in 1833. This period also saw a wave of plantations in Ireland, where Irish lands were confiscated and given to English and Scottish settlers. Tensions would rise between Charles I and Parliament. Following disagreements, conflicts between royal and parliamentary authority within England led to the English Civil War.
Isn't it? They're all so ugly. Like, they're all painted so ugly. Every single king or queen in England's history. Maybe it's just because of the paintings and stuff, but I just always see them and they look so clap.
The country became divided between parliamentarians, known as the Roundheads, and royalists, known as the Cavaliers. Under Oliver Cromwell and the New Model Army, the parliamentarians defeated Charles and executed him for treason. Cromwell became Lord Protector and dissolved the monarchy, but shortly after his death it was restored under Charles II.
What a shame.
Charles II.
What an absolute shame. He done good work and then it was just restored right after.
Married Catherine of Braganza, and when she arrived from Portugal she introduced the greatest beverage of all time. Tea. Tea
Damn.
had been used by
Wait, tea only really came to the UK, what, 350 years ago? I thought it was like way more, like way back further than that. I don't know, that's kind of crazy. So what were they drinking before that?
China for centuries, but its arrival in the 17th century captured the interest of the English aristocracy and soon captivated every other Englishman. In 1685, a Catholic James II became king in a largely Protestant nation. James's daughter Mary and her Dutch husband William were both Protestant, and many nobles unhappy with the Catholic king invited William to become king. William found considerable support when he invaded, and he was soon crowned King William III in what became known as the Glorious Revolution. Although William's supporters dominated the government, there remained a significant following for James II in the Scottish Highlands. Clan MacDonald of Glencoe was one such group who had not been prompt in pledging allegiance to the new monarch. For this reason alone, 38 members of the clan were murdered in what became known as the Massacre of Glencoe.
That's crazy, bro. The monarchy, the things that they've done. Oh my god, it just baffles me. You know what? It actually blows my mind. Like it's wild. Like back in the day, you would have opposed it or whatever, and you get killed or whatever. Like it's crazy to me. I don't know. The monarchy is a whole different conversation, but yeah, damn, the things that they done.
After Scotland's failed colonial endeavours in Nova Scotia and Panama, and an economic... Scotland's failed colonial endeavours in Nova Scotia...
Scotland tried to do it too. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
Panama, and an economic crisis in the 1690s, there was a union between England and Scotland, forming the United Kingdom of Great Britain.
Oh,
the House
okay.
of Stuart had ruled Britain for just over a century, but ended with the death of Queen Anne. Sophia of Hanover was the granddaughter of James I, and her son George became king. Great Britain soon found...
So I guess that's where the sort of the German roots came from the royal family, right? But then how are they all like? Are all these people like related? They're not, because there was someone from Portugal, someone from Germany, someone from here, someone from there. So I guess this is where it sort of came in, and then it stayed in the bloodline from here, because Queen Elizabeth and the royal family are all German descendants, no? So I assume that's sort of where it comes from, the German sort of part of the royal family, I guess.
Self-drawn into several European wars, most notable being the War of the Spanish Succession and the 7 Years' War. Victories in these wars resulted in territory for the Empire, particularly in North America, although it resulted in considerable debt. In order to make up for this debt, King George III ordered heavy taxes be placed on the 13 colonies. This, among other reasons, culminated into the American War of Independence, and with financial help from France and Spain, the Americans were victorious. The East India Company, which was founded by Elizabeth I, had grown rapidly, and even operated its own military and controlled a sizable amount of territory. The company had set up fortified warehouses where they traded with many India rulers, acquiring important luxuries like textiles and spices. One of the most important cities of all was Bengal, as it had a large taxable population. The governor of Bengal, Robert Clive, ordered that the population grow opium to export to China, instead of growing food, as it proved to be a great source of income.
Wow.
However, when a famine struck, it resulted in the deaths of millions of people. Meanwhile, Captain James Cook arrived at New Zealand and the southeast coast of Australia. Although he wasn't the first to discover the...
God, they went everywhere, man. It's crazy how in these days they would have travelled all this distance. Like, god damn, you must have felt you were in a different world, and you got certain directions wrong. You're going into the wilderness in this direction, man.
area because of past Portuguese and Dutch explorers. However, unlike the Dutch and Portuguese, Britain claimed it as their new penal colony, known as New South Wales, with the first convicts arriving in 1778. A new threat had emerged from France, French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte.
Ah, I heard it too late. Just too late.
Napoleon had come to dominate most of Europe, but Britain's advantage was that she was an island, and the Royal Navy had become a major force at sea. Invasion of Britain was near impossible, and in a series of coalitions Napoleon was defeated. By the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Britain was growing rapidly into a superpower based on their supremacy of naval engineering. Furthermore, in Ireland the Great Famine struck, a disease killing potato plants. Ireland, which had merged with Britain, relied heavily on this crop for food, but the British government forced Ireland to export what little food they had to other areas.
Yeah, I need to learn more about this one, man, about how badly Britain and probably most specifically England treated Ireland, man, because there's some messed up stuff behind that. I know that. I don't know bits here and there about the famine, but I don't know the full history. So obviously this is going to give me a brief look on it, but I need to just look up this in my own time, to be honest.
Without any aid or food, Ireland's population plummeted by half.
I love Irish people, man. I think Irish people are my favourite. Just everything about them, the sort of culture, the accents. I just think Ireland's amazing, honestly. It's sad to me because obviously when you're younger, you don't realise all this sort of history, and like I just sort of saw it as like a country I love, but there's a lot of history behind it, and it makes it kind of sad. And probably a reason why a lot of Irish people don't like English people or whatever like that. There's just certain things to do with the history, which makes sense. But as a country and as like a culture, I love Ireland, man.
And emigration to countries like the United States. Things weren't looking so great in India either, as India was rebelling against company rule. The East India Company had employed many Indian soldiers known as sepoys, who were under the command of British soldiers. These sepoys grew increasingly unhappy, and a revolt soon occurred, yet it quickly failed due to a lack of unity between Indians. After the rebellion, the British government took direct control, with Queen Victoria being declared Empress of India. During the 19th century, the world was forever changed by the Industrial Revolution. Society was transformed by technological advances and increasing mechanisation, and would launch Britain to global dominance. Some of the greatest innovations and inventions were the sewing machine, the fire extinguisher, steam-powered engines and turbines, the electric motor and photography. The telegraph was also a major invention, as a message could now be sent from Britain to India in a matter
What? I didn't know it was that long ago. I thought like sort of the telegraph would just contact between countries and stuff would have been way after this. Wow.
hours. The establishment of railways and trains also transformed transport forever. Instead of travelling days by horse and carriage, it now only took a matter of hours by train. Engineering and communication advances not only united the empire, they triggered a manufacturing boom like no other. People flocked from rural areas to city centres for jobs. Productivity reached an all-time high, but the consequences of mass migration resulted in extremely cramped and polluted cities.
London, bro, I've learned about the history of London and like the pollution and how grimy it was and stuff. But I guess at this point, England was the main country. Like I guess we were making all these. I say making all these inventions. We were like we were inventing things. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And it was the richest country, the most powerful country. It's crazy because there's always a peak and then there's always a fall. I wonder the exact moment when it sort of went to. I say went to shit. It didn't go to shit because I'm here and I'm happy. You know, still live a good life. But I guess when countries realised, I don't want you controlling me. We want to be independent. We want to be our own country. We are our own country. You shouldn't be in control. I guess that's when it faded away and stuff. But what was the first country to gain its independence? Like, I guess that's hard to answer because there's probably countries that we had control of for a few weeks or like a year or something. But I'd assume it was the US, right? The US must have been the first major country. But then the UK, England, Great Britain, then boomed from that. Was when the UK, I keep saying the UK, whatever, Great Britain had control of the US. Was that its most powerful point? Or was it after that? It must have been after that. But we're not at that point yet, so they've not actually. I don't know. I'm talking out my arse.
Cities. However, with these problems that were generated, it resulted in an improved sewage system. Newcastle focused on
So there's no throwing your shit buckets out the window now. That's a good sign.
Building. Manchester, the cotton.
Sorry for pausing again. I've just realised there was a thing called window tax, wasn't there? And like, if you've come to England before, you might notice some houses have their windows blocked up by brick. Wait, let's just search it up. Window tax was a property tax based on the number of windows in a house. It was a significant social, cultural, and architectural force in England. See, England has the weirdest taxes in the world, man. Ireland during the 18th and 19th centuries to avoid tax. Some homes from the period can be seen to have bricked up window spaces, and they still do. But it's crazy that we have some of the weirdest flipping taxes. Like we have TV licensing now and all this just weird stuff, man. But I guess it gave the whole country a lot of money, and that's what they wanted.
Industry, Liverpool became a major trading centre. Middlesbrough fixated itself on iron and steel works. The presence of iron ore, limestone and large coal deposits in the West Midlands and South East Wales prompted the establishment of ironworks, and Scotland boomed in the linen industry. The Victorian
my city done nothing, great.
era also saw a major change in society, as families from the poorest backgrounds gained access to education, although it was much stricter than today's standards. The 1860s also saw the rise of the greatest food combination ever: fish and chips. Towards the end of the 19th century, European powers came together at the Berlin Conference to divide Africa between them. A group in South Africa known as the Boers, who were originally Dutch settlers, proved difficult for the British. The Boers lived in two nations, the Free Orange State and the Republic of Transvaal, and both resisted British rule using guerrilla warfare. To counter this, the British placed many women and children in their tens of thousands into concentration camps.
Yeah, I remember learning about this as well. We were actually the first country to start using concentration camps. Bro, this country stinks, man. It actually stinks of shit. When you think about it, like, we are the worst country on the planet. But it's, again, what blows my mind is, like, all these other countries, people like from Norway, from Germany, wherever, like, came in and done their own thing at certain points in history, and then it all led to this. So it's wild to me. But like, the whole of history is built on war. But when you sort of hear about it in general, it's bad. But in more recent history, like 100, 200 years ago, like, it makes it feel even worse than it is. I mean, it's obviously bad, but it just makes it seem a lot worse than it was if it was 500, 600 years ago, even though it's the same. But yeah, being the first country to start using concentration camps is such an L on our part, and it actually stinks. It makes me feel so annoyed, man, because countries look at Germany for what they've done, and obviously it was horrible. What they've done in like World War II, it was absolutely horrible, but we're not any better, man. We're not any better at all.
When many died from starvation and disease. Britain became a major player in the First World War, and many men proudly volunteered to serve and protect their country. The Great War, as it was called, saw the use of new technology, such as dreadnoughts, warplanes, artillery, machine guns, grenades, chemical weapons, bolt-action rifles, and the first use of the tank. Many faced horrific conditions in the trenches and witnessed gruesome battles. Millions died, and many returned home shell-shocked by what they had seen.
I couldn't imagine.
The Empire reached its territory.
So at this point, World War I is just finished. And yeah, I guess at this point they're thinking, hopefully it's not going to happen again. 20 years later, boom.
Territorial height in 1921 after gaining territory from Germany.
Wait, really? So 1921 was when the UK was at its height?
Reached its territorial height in 1921 after gaining territory from Germany and the
100 years ago? I thought it had been way before that. Flipping hell.
Crumbling Ottoman Empire. The empire now ruled over 400 million people and controlled 1/4 of the world's landmass. But the reality was, Britain could no longer afford to build bases or ships to defend its empire as it had before 1914. Ireland finally managed to break away from British rule and formed the Irish Free State, and shortly after became a republic. The Second World War was more brutal and horrific than the First. Most of Europe had fallen under German occupation, and under Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Britain stood strong during the Battle of Britain and the Blitz. Britain were extremely successful at intercepting and decoding enemy communications, with the likes of Alan Turing, who cracked the German Enigma code. The war ended with an Allied victory, but many nations within the Empire felt a desire for independence, and it was clear the Empire was about to break. India was one such nation who were ready to declare their independence. Mohandas Gandhi practiced a non-violent approach, and this proved successful, as shortly after India gained independence. The Commonwealth of Nations was formed to improve relations and economic ties with former colonies. This still remains today, with 53 members united by language, history, culture, and shared values of democracy. The British Empire officially ended with Hong Kong, Britain's last colony, being handed over to China in 1997. The empire committed many atrocities on many different people, imposing their culture and civilization while often wiping out native ones. On the other hand, this brought about globalization and the uniting of the modern world. And without such innovations and industrialization, the world might have been a very different place. The United Kingdom suffered a small economic recession in 2008, but has since recovered. It is a
Ooh, speaking a bit too soon there, lad. 2022 has walked in the room, and I think you are now wrong.
cultural society with each region retaining a presence of its history and culture. If you ever visit, look out for the Welsh cake, the haggis, the whiskey, the Chelsea bun, the parmo, the Cumberland sausage, the Yorkshire pudding, or the Cornish pasty.
Love
The
Yorkshire
UK
pudding,
remains
man.
a member of NATO, United Nations and the World Trade Organization, and uses the pound currency. In 2016, a referendum resulted in 51.9% of voters in favour to leave the European Union.
Such an L.
Although the country...
Wait. Gibraltar can vote. Gibraltar, which is below Spain, can vote for the referendums and stuff. Damn. I wouldn't have guessed that at all. What the hell? God, it actually makes me sick how many voted for Brexit in like the blue, man. So all of Scotland voted against it. I assume that's what it is. Which, shout out to Scotland for that, man. A lot of Wales didn't, and oh my god, so much blue. What? I guess London is where it's really not. The major cities is where it's not. Like, you see the major cities. This is Norwich. I say major city. Norwich. You got like London all over London. You got like Liverpool, Manchester, I guess Leeds. Just, yeah, where the major cities are. But then where it's like not the major cities, it's all blue.
Union. Although the countries within the United Kingdom became divided on the matter, leading to the many questions of its future unity. Thank you for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Interesting watch, man. I like this a lot. It's an interesting thing to learn about. A lot of the stuff I probably did learn about, but I can't remember. And I learned a lot of new things as well. But yeah, amazing how such a small country had such an impact on the world. It's crazy how such a small country. It's wild to me. It is actually wild. As an American, only being taught stuff about Britain from the perspective of American Revolution, this was incredibly interesting. As a Brit, I can confirm that Essex is now the furthest thing from a kingdom. But yeah, that's very true. Essex is a very sus county for sure. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. If you want more of this stuff, let me know in the comments. And yeah, until next time, like, subscribe.